Oh, well, look at there. Yep, doggone it. I've been having this issue with StreamYard losing my blue screen. I mean, I haven't a clue what's going on there. I'm going to try to repair that. It'll only take me a moment. Um, I hope I don't have to do a reboot. That has happened in the past. Oh boy, yeah, it's telling me I have to do a reboot. So this will only take a second. Don't anybody go anywhere because I just have to do a refresh on screen. And I'm back. That's happened to me 3 times now. Hopefully it won't happen again. I hope it won't. I don't know what's causing that at all. I don't know. It's in StreamYard. It's not anything else. But I'm going to take a peek at who's out there in the chat. Well, we had right from the get-go Shadow Scout Swede, Yoran. He jumped in real early saying hello. It's great to see you, Yoran. Always great to see you. And then we had Peppers and Kentucky Living popped in. Him and Yoran chat together a little. And we got everything spicy. He's driving home. He's on his way home. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Bill, yeah. I mean, he's like clockwork, man. I wouldn't know what to do without him. It'd be like losing my right arm, man. Yeah, he's great. He's great. Tonight's topic here on Sty Times, what a different one, yeah. Can you pass the test? This topic ended up in the topic list because I had an individual one day having coffee with a group of old boys. We were talking about life in general, it's a typical conversation. And yeah, we got Phil out there, everything spicy's watching and listening. Well, you pay attention to the road too, bud. You're driving. But this one old fella, he come up with this comment. He said, my pop, he said he only had an 8th grade education. And he seemed to do okay, He had a good life. And I can't remember what he said his pop did for a living, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just listening. And then I interjected and I said, hey, both of my grandfathers, both of them, each had an 8th grade education. That's all they had. And I said, but their 8th grade education was more of an education than what you'd have in a 2-year college education today. And they all looked at each other. I said, I've been there, looked at it, and I'm telling you, you could take an 8th grader from back in the very early 1900s, test him out today, and he's going to test out no less than a first-year post-secondary college education or a second-year college education. That's where they'll test out with an 8th grade education. Well, 8th grade, they were only 13, 14 years old. And they had a better education and a better understanding. They actually learned more than what our students today are coming out of 2 years of college with. If you test the two, you find out there's a world of difference, And I have people argue that all the time. I had this one fellow say, well, I know my kid, he's in his first year of college. He says, oh, he's the smartest character you ever met. I haven't met anybody as smart as him. Well, then you haven't met some of these good old boys and these good old gals that made it at least to the eighth grade 100 years ago. You haven't met them because you think your kid's smart. You think your kid's smart. The reason we feel that we're so much smarter today than they must have been 110 years ago is because we have access to information. We can Google everything. You can get online, find the answer to everything. We don't have the answers anymore. The answers are just out there available to us. But if we are sat down and told, we're going to give you a test, what happens? Boy, we panic. Well, we do get to use our smartphone, right? So I can access Google and the internet. No, you're going to take this test to see what you know. Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no. Can you pass the test? Most people honestly cannot. Hey, I see we got Tim from Kirk Whipper Voyager Center. He's out there in the chat too. That's great to see you there, Tim. The thing is, it doesn't make our kids dumb today. It doesn't make them stupid. It just means they're not educated in the same fashion as people used to be educated. And I think that's a weakness, actually. What if we didn't have the internet? We didn't have Google, no smartphones, no way to access that information. What if that was all taken away from us? Now all of a sudden, our knowledge level crashes. The majority of society wouldn't have a clue. Wouldn't have a clue. Where do I go from here? I've got no way to know anything because my knowledge just got taken away from me. Hey, Gulf Coast ACR Scrapper, it's good to see you. Good to see you. I think you folks will notice. I love to shout out the folks over there in the chat. I love it when folks show up. But learning has turned into something totally new, totally new. Now, I have on a different screen, and I try to do a screen share, and it just doesn't come in good. You can't see it. But I've got a 8th grade, what they call the graduation test exam from the 8th grade on a separate screen. And I'm going to be reading some of the questions out of that test to you folks. And you just think about some of those questions and you think, when you're 13, 14 years old, you're supposed to answer these questions and get them right? Lord, Lord, oh Lord, that's difficult. We're going to be getting into that test. That test was administered in 1912. That's 110 years ago. Yeah, Gulf Coast is saying in high school I could remember lots of phone numbers and now one. Yeah. And that's a thing. There you go. That's a good example of how technology has taken away our need to retain. We don't need to personally retain all that information anymore. I know exactly what Gulf Coast is saying. When I was a kid, man, I probably had memorized a couple dozen phone numbers. I had them memorized. You know, I probably had 6 or 8 of my friends' numbers burnt to memory, and I had our home number. I had grandma and grandpa's numbers for both sides of the family. I had their numbers burned in my head. I had And aunt and uncle's number burned in my head. And we didn't have 911. You couldn't dial 911. Help, I need the police. No, you had to know the number for the police department. That was burned in my head. So yeah, I had a good dozen phone numbers or so. Just burned the memory. I picked that phone up at whoever and sometimes you'd misdial and call the wrong person. Oh, nope, that's not your number. Sorry, I'm calling so and so. And that person probably tell you, well, no, their number is such and such and such. We didn't have to Google it. Well, now our phones, all we got to do is pull up the person's name and hit dial that sucker. We don't have to remember their doggone number. I don't know anybody's phone number. I rarely know my own. I rarely remember my own phone number. I hate that when somebody says, and your phone number is? And I go, just a second. I pull my phone. I grab my phone. I go, I'll let you know in just a second. Oh, here's my phone number. I don't even have to remember my own. So actually, compared to Gulf Coast, I don't even remember one phone number. I do know 911. Hey, help, police! I need the ambulance. I need the ambulance. I remember that, right? Hey, Step Van Dan, it is so good to see you out there in the chat. Do I need to take my shoes off for this test? LOL. Hey, this test, I'm going to be giving you guys an example of this test. This test I'm talking about, like I said, I got it on this separate screen. Oh, wrong. It's over there. Oh, it ain't. Yeah, it is. It's over there. Over there's chat. I got 3 screens going on. But that test was administered in 1912, like I said. You know, we're talking 110 years ago. I did something with that test. I've had this copy of this test for several years, quite a few years. And I go back every once in a while to look at it. Now, I've taken this test. I've taken this test a few times. Now, you had to pass that test with a minimum. They didn't give D's, F's and D's on this test. You had to pass this test a minimum of a 70%. Otherwise, you didn't graduate the 8th grade, period. You'd have to take it again. I've taken this test several times. You know, I give it a year, and then I'll pull it up, and just out of curiosity, I'll take the test. Then I go and I check my answers. And I don't know the exact number of times I've taken that test. But the one thing I do know, I only passed it once. And I got a 74%. I only passed it once. And I consider myself fairly intelligent. I'm not yesterday's moron. You know, I should be able to pass an 8th grade test. I've only passed that test once, and I've taken it several times. You would think I'd get it by now, you know, because I have seen the answers. You'd think I'd remember the answers. I don't have to remember anymore. I got my smartphone. I got the computer. I don't need this thing, you know. I don't need to be so smart, right? Now, back when I was in high school, our tests were tough, but they weren't even as tough as that test in 1912. And I always wondered about that, because my one grandfather, he had an 8th grade education, but yet he had a Boilermaker's license. Well, he had to go to a special trade school for that. Well, they didn't care if he had a 12th grade education, a high school diploma. They did care that he passed the 8th grade. You had to pass the 8th grade to be able to get your boilermaker's license. Well, once he got that boilermaker's license, his career was up and running. And he did quite well during his life. My other grandfather, 8th grade education, he decided he was going to go into electronics. He ended up owning his own phone company. I can't remember how many people he's serviced. It was he had a lot of telephones out there, a lot of accounts. He was a farmer. He was also their local TV, radio, anything electronic repair man. He had a big shop on the farm. You go in there and it's all electronics of the day, right? There was no calculators or anything of that sort. Even the adding machines weren't electric yet. They were still mechanical, you know. But televisions and radios, and they needed to be repaired. And you needed to know your electronics pretty good. Right? He went to school for it, ended up opening his own repair service, and he did very well. He did better repairing televisions and radios and running that telephone company that he had than he did farming. And he retired from farming way early. You would have thought he'd be a farmer his whole life. Well, he ended up retiring from farming and just doing the repair stuff, the electronic repair stuff, all with an 8th grade education. Well, when I look at that test from 1912, it makes sense. It makes sense. So I see hunting and stuff with J&J's in the house. It is great to see you. Awesome. Well, I'll tell you what. I took this test from 1912, and I printed off a bunch of copies. That's back during my career. And I had to go to Georgia Technical Institute, right? Down in Atlanta, Georgia. And I was pre-warned that what I was going there for, I was taking 2 courses of study, all compressed into 9 days, and both courses of study were full semester courses, right? All compressed into 9 days. And those 9 days, there was only 7 of those days that were that were educational. We had 1 day off, and then we had our exam on both courses of study. They had a prerequisite. You had to be in certain fields. You had to be in nuclear sciences or engineering. And there was one other one, I can't remember what it was. There were 3 fields that you needed to be in to qualify for these 2 courses. Those were mandated prerequisites. I convinced them to allow me to take these courses. Hello, Mr. Fulton. Mr. Fulton's out in the chat. You're more than welcome for the birthday wishes, Mr. Fulton. You only turned 23 once in your life. I hope you had a wonderful day. Well, what those courses of study was lead-based paint risk assessment. That's where you go in and you determine the risk of lead-based paint poisoning in buildings, right? The other course of study was lead-based paint inspection certification. In other words, you would be federally recognized is capable of going in and actually inspecting a building for what its actual levels of lead contamination are. Where risk assessment, you're just determining, is there a risk? The inspection side of it, you're actually going in and physically inspecting and testing and coming up with an analysis of the whole building, how much lead is actually there. Well, both those courses of study were considered very intense to be compressed into a single semester. Well, then they took, and for specialized reasons, they compressed it into a 9-day course. And it was because it was right in the peak of the lead-based paint thing. And I managed millions of dollars of federal money at the time that involved old housing developments that all had to be inspected for lead-based paint and risk assessments done. And looking at our budgets and everything, we couldn't afford to hire people from the outside come in and do it. It was so blasted expensive. It was cheaper for me to get the education, get the certifications, do it myself. They warned me. They said, you could be wasting your money, because it cost almost $2,000 to take this course. They said you could be wasting your money because we don't give refunds because you don't pass the exam. Because on the last day, the 9th day, you're going to sit and you're going to be taking an exam. And what we do is we take both courses of study and we combine those 2 exams. And you're given 6 hours to do the test. Can you pass the test? Yeah, that's always the question, right? Well, you can if you put enough study into something, right? Well, I did. And everything Spicy says. So many of his favorite chips were lead-based. Yeah, they're hard to find now. Lead's hard to find now. Yeah. But so when I went to Georgia Tech, I printed off about a dozen or so of these 8th grade tests because I was real curious about this, man. I would be sitting there with these nuclear physicists and these engineers, all these big brains, man. I'm going to be amongst all these big brains, right? I was curious. I'm going to take that test with me. I flew down to Georgia and I got there. Sure enough, at night, after you spend all day in class, and in the evenings, you'd spend, everybody, it was like a gentleman's agreement. Everybody spent 2 hours in the evening studying. That's all you did was study. Then you all get together and you figure out where you're going to go hang out for the night, eat, party, whatever you're going to do, right? Well, one night I mentioned to these guys, they're talking about how I'm going to blow it. There's no way I'm going to pass the exam, on and on. And I told them, I said, I got a test for you guys. I said, I got copies back in my room. I said, we can use the conference room at the hotel. Let's get together and take that test. I said, we'll do it on our day off because we had this, the 8th day of that 9 days was our day off. You could use that to cram and study or do whatever you want because on the 9th day, it's the big exam, right? Well, so we got together on the 8th day and I said, it's only going to take us about half a day. I said, I'm going to give you guys Hey, bacon stuffed donuts out there in the chat. Great to see you. Um, and we got together, and there was 8 of these guys, right? And 9 of us total. There's 8 of them. I gave them each copy of the test, and I said, "You got 4 hours." Now this is about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I treated them all. I got a bunch of donuts and sweet rolls and stuff, and had a big pot of coffee brought in. And I said, "This is going to take about 4 hours." I said, "You're given 4 hours to take the test," and I had made an answer sheet so we could grade them all. Hey, Andrew Merritt, it's great to see you coming in. That's great. So they sat down. They said, "This ought to be interesting." And I said, "No sharing answers, you guys." And they went to work and they started doing the test. And I told them there's no grading curve. You got to answer every question. If you don't answer a question, 0 points. The whole key is you got to get a 70% or better of all the questions. Every single question. I don't remember the total number of questions, but every question was worth 10 points, and every question counts. So if you don't answer the question, you don't get those points, and you got to get 70%. So answer them all, man. Even if you're not sure, answer it, because you might accidentally get it right. You need the points, right? At the end of that 4 hours, they all give up. They said, "We're done." And we graded them all. Now, out of those 8 guys, only 2 of them were these nuclear physicists. The other 6 were all engineers. Out of those 8 guys, guess what? 0. 0 of them passed the test. The best score we had was a 68%. He says, "I'm so close it needs to count." I said, "No, 70%, man. 70%, you didn't make it." Now, these are big brains. These guys are going to build our bridges. They're going to build our skyscrapers. They're going to design the next space shuttle, for crying out loud. They're going to build our nuclear power plants. They couldn't pass that eighth grade test. Can you pass the test? I passed it once, and I've taken it several times. I should know it by heart, but I only passed it once. After the break, we're going to talk about that test. I'm going to read off some questions off that test, and you get a good idea of, in 1912, as a 13, 14-year-old, you wouldn't have been any older than that. 12 to 14 years. The questions you had to answer, how smart you had to be at that age. You ask one of those folks from that era, and they tell you, "Oh, I think I can pass the test." Because believe it or not, back in those days, their graduation rates were in the 90s, 90-some percent graduation rates. So more than 9 out of 10 kids were able to pass that test. But now today, you give that test to any adult. You give it to young people in their 20s that are big brains going to Georgia Technical College for engineering and nuclear physicists, and they couldn't pass it. Wow. Yeah, bacon stuffed donut, I totally agree. Bacon stuffed donut, there's our joke for the day. Every time I go on vacation, my wife gets pregnant. I need to start taking her with me on vacation. Nothing like coming home to a surprise, eh? That's right. I had a coworker. After the holidays one year, I said to him, What did you get your wife for Christmas? I was telling him what I got my ex-wife for Christmas. I said, what'd you get your wife for Christmas? He goes, oh, I got her mad. And I go, what do you mean you got her mad? And he says, well, she's mad because of what I got her for Christmas. I said, well, what was it? And he goes, I got her pregnant. Okay. Answered that question. He didn't pass the test. Hey, I see E-Way Smite hopped in. It is great to see you, buddy. Oh, man, it's so good to see you. And this is the halfway point. I'm going to shout out my channel members. This takes 50 seconds is all it takes. Don't go anywhere. We're going to get right back on Can You Pass the Test as soon as this is done. Just a little note on the memberships. I tell you what, if you want to become a member, I don't have any campers right now. If you become a camper and you stay a camper for 3 months, I'll send you a channel t-shirt. You bet I will. Hey, okay, back to Can You Pass the Test? So I found out these guys couldn't pass the test. All these engineers and nuclear physicists. At the end of that course of study, 9 weeks or 9 days, we took a whole semester, compressed it in 9 lousy days. When we went in for the test, they told us you get 6 hours. And we're like, oh my God, 6 hours? They said, there's no lunch break. There's no breaks. If you need to get up and go to the restroom, the room we took the test in had a restroom right attached to it. Unisex restroom. You got to use that restroom. You're not allowed to leave this room. You use that restroom. Otherwise, there's no breaks. Well, for crying out loud. When we dug into that, when I got there, they issue you this 2-wheeler, right? It's like a freight cart, a 2-wheeler. And it's stacked almost to the top with nothing but textbooks. It weighs about 80 pounds. And you haul that 2-wheeler, you strap all them books to that 2-wheeler. You haul that thing around with you all over campus, right? And you sit there in your hotel room at night, stuck in them books, constantly studying. 7 solid days of you'd run out, you'd have dinner, and you'd spend an hour or 2 just enjoying yourself, get back to your room, and you'd be up till 2 in the morning, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, studying, reading those books. Get a few hours of sleep, and you shake it out at 6, 7 o'clock because you got to be in that room by 8, and you're in there until 4:30 in the afternoon. You get a 1-hour lunch break. That's it. 7 days, right? And then you take that test. When we sat down and I was taking that test, the lead instructor of this course, we had 4 different professors that we dealt with during that week. The lead professor, he made it clear. Now, this test, there's no grading curve. Those Georgia Tech students that were taking it gasped. And they said, what do you mean there's no grading curve? He said, no, there isn't. You will answer every question because every question counts. We have a total score. If you answer every single question, there's a total score. And what you do is you earn points to knock off that total score. So the whole idea is to get yourself down to zero, to answer as many questions correctly as possible. They said, we're not required to do that in our courses of study in engineering. And the nuclear physicists are saying the same thing. Wait a minute, we're graded on a curve. We're graded on the questions we answer. If we answer a question and it's wrong, those are points against us. But if we answer it correct, those are points for us. But if we don't answer it at all, it doesn't count. And that professor says, not today. I got into that test. And when it got into the mathematical side, now my career is all in finance, right? Got into the mathematical side, and it was pure nuclear sciences. A lot of it was, and an awful lot of advanced algebra and some trig, it was pretty advanced. So by the time I was done with the test that day, I was asking myself, can you pass this test, man? They would not give us our score. All they would give us is pass or fail, pass or fail. They didn't want anybody to know what the scores were. Pass or fail. That's all they would give you. We're standing in this long line, and you come up, and they'd tell you, they'd look your name up, and they'd go, pass. Next guy. Sorry, bud, fail. Next guy. I had all these, I was in amongst this group of engineers, and they're feeling bad for me. They said, man, you going to handle it when they say fail? And I said, yeah, I guess I can. I said it was worth the try, but I said that test was tough, man. That was tough. I don't know if I can pass that test. I got up there, and the professor looks at me, and he goes, pass. I go, say what? He goes, I told you, pass. Now move along. I said, I'm just in shock. And he goes, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to tell you something you don't deserve to know. He says, there's only one person got a higher score than you. You're number 2. Now get out of here. I came in second. I had the second highest score on that test. I wasn't an engineer or a nuclear physicist, but I studied my butt off to get it. And it paid. It paid. Now, we're going to talk about in 1912. Can you pass the test? I'm going to discuss some of these questions they had. Okay, now this test was administered in the state of Kentucky, right? Just so you're aware, because some of the questions were state relevant, right? But the reading and writing exam, they don't give an example because that was given by each individual teacher, the reading and writing. They had a standard they had to meet, but it was given by the teacher. The rest of the exam was all written exam. You had to, under arithmetic, okay, math, arithmetic, be proper, right? Oh, wait a minute. Before that, they had spelling. Here are some of the spelling words. Exaggerate, incentive, conscious, pennyweight, chandelier, participate, bequeath, diminish, genuine, hyphen, rhinoceros, adjective, architect, endeavor, scissors, associate, masculine, synopsis, circulate, vinegar, yeah, genuine, yeah, Great words. Arithmetic. They want you to write in words the following. 0.5764. Then they want you to write 0.123416 in words. Then you need to write 653.0965 in words. Okay. So there's one, gotta look at this, 1, 2, 3. There was 4 parts to that question, worth 10 points. Another one was solve 35 minus 7 plus 4 and 5 minus 8 plus 5 minus 14 minus 59.112. You're between 12 and 14 years old. Thank you very much for that problem. Then they want you to find the cost at 12.5 cents per square yard of painting the walls of a room 20 feet long, 16 feet wide, 9 feet high. Okay, you're going to figure out that cost for that room at 12.5 cents per square yard. They gave it all to you in feet. Now you got to convert that all into square yards and multiply it by 12.5 cents per yard, right? But then you need to deduct one door that's 8 feet by 4 feet and 6 inches, and deduct 2 windows 5 foot by 3 foot, 6 inches each. Nice question for a 12 to 14-year-old. And then here's a question that should be rather answerable. A man bought a farm for $2,400 and sold it for $2,700. Yeah, 1912 maybe. What percent did he gain? Okay, he gained $300. What percent of that? What was his percentage of gain? Find the amount of $50.30 for 3 years. Okay. Now you know, in 3 years, you made $50.30. For 3 years, 3 months, and 3 days at 8% interest. All right, that's good for a 12, 14-year-old, right? Right. Here's a simple one, I guess. A school enrolled 120 pupils, and the number of boys was 2/3 of the number of girls. How many of each sex were enrolled? All right, yeah, you know, some of this stuff is crazy. Here's a good one. How many steps, 2 feet 4 inches each, will a man take in walking 2.25 miles? That means you have to have burned a memory how many feet in each square or in each mile. And then you take those number of feet, multiply it by 2.25. Then you have to divide that by 2 feet 4 inches each for each step. Pretty involved, pretty involved. Here's another question. At $1.62.5 per cord, what will be the cost of a pile of wood 24 feet long, 4 foot wide, and 6 feet 3 inches high? You think you're going to answer that in just a minute or two? No. Well, and then the next category, I'm moving on. Grammar. How many parts of speech are there? Define each one. You got to define each one. Then it says define proper noun, a common noun. Then it says, question, what's a personal pronoun? Oh boy, we get those nowadays, don't we? The oh boy, let's see what else. The oh gosh. Um, Adjectives. How many degrees of comparison with a question mark? Compare good, wise, and beautiful. Parse all the words in the following sentences. John ran over the bridge. Helen's parents love her. Fun stuff. Yeah. Can we pass the test? Wow. Geography. Another category. Name and give. Well, wait a minute. No, we're going to move on to this one. Locate Erie Canal. In other words, say where it's at. What waters does it connect? And why is it important? Oh, okay. Locate the following countries which border each other: Turkey, Greece, Serbia, Montenegro, Romania. Yeah, okay, sure. I just know that, right? Now these kids weren't allowed to. These weren't open book tests. I mean, they had to have this stuff burnt to memory. Name and give the capitals of states touching the Ohio River. Locate these cities: Mobile, Quebec, Buenos Aires, Liverpool, Honolulu. Name in order of their size the 3 largest states in the United States. You got to know that, right? Locate the following mountains. Where are they at? Blue Ridge, Himalayas, Andes, Alps, the Wasatch. Yeah. Through what waters would a vessel pass it going from England through the Suez Canal to Manila? Oh, yeah, you're going to know that, right? 12, 14 years old? Yeah. You better be paying attention in class, man. Physiology, another area of the test. How does the liver compare in size with other glands in the human body? Where is it located? What does it separate? Or what does it secrete? I'm sorry. What does it secrete? Now, these are 12, 14 years olds in 1912 taking this test, okay? Compare arteries and veins as to function. Where is the blood carried to be purified? Why should we study physiology? Answer that. Give at least 5 rules to be observed in maintaining good health. That was worth 20 points, that question. Wow. Now here's an area of the test that you don't see anymore. That's a whole different, that's actually a Sty story. I never graduated high school, right? I haven't. I've got a college degree. I've got specialized certifications, blah, blah, blah. But in order to get those things, there's prerequisite requirements. You got to have a high school diploma. So when I was 47 years old, I took my high school equivalency exam to get my high school diploma. That I passed. Miraculously, I passed without a problem. But I found out after I did that, I was one of the last people nationwide that was required in a high school equivalency exam to be tested on civil government. Back in 1912, it was mandated. You had to take it. You had to take it when I was in school, back when I was in high school. Okay, civil government. Define the following forms of government: democracy, limited monarchy, absolute monarchy, republic. Give examples of each. Name 5 county officers, and the principal duties of each. Name and define the 3 branches of the government of the United States. Give 3 duties of the president. What is meant by veto power? Name 3 rights given to Congress by the Constitution and 2 rights denied to Congress by the Constitution. All right, let's see. Give the eligibility of president, vice president, and the governor of your state. Wow, okay. What is a copyright? What's a patent right? All right, and it says describe each. Describe the manner in which the president and the vice president of the United States are elected. Crazy, crazy. Got to know those civil issues, right? History. Who first discovered the following places? Florida, the Pacific Ocean, Mississippi River, the St. Lawrence River. Has anybody got a clue? Right, okay. During what wars were the following battles fought? Brandywine, Great Meadows, Lundy's Lane, Antietam, Buena Vista. Can you tell us which wars all of those battles happened in? Oh, yeah. Describe the Battle of Quebec. Right. Give the cause of the War of 1812 and name an important battle fought during that war. Name the last battle of the Civil War and the War of 1812 and the French and Indian War and the commanders of each battle. Can you imagine that kid had to have that all burnt to memory? Another question under history. What president was impeached and on what charge? Well, now today, there would be multiples. But in 1912, there was only one at the time. Another question. Who invented the following? Magnets, the telegraph, the cotton gin, sewing machine, the telephone, the phonograph. All of those things, burnt to memory. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that test? Can you imagine giving that test to an 8th grader today? They're not going to pass it. They're not going to pass it. And today is even worse. They haven't been in school for 18 months, and now they're just getting back into school. But the kids that missed 2 school years of in-school learning, and they sat at home at laptops and did supposed at-home learning, have all been graduated those grades. Now, if you take a kid last year when they were at home doing remote learning, and at the end of the school year was given that exam, do you think they'd pass it? Without that in-classroom instruction, something that actually helped that burn into their minds, they'd never pass it. Can you pass the test? No, but I can if you let me use this. Can I have my smartphone with me? I'll answer those questions. I get it done. Yeah. Kids are not taught what they used to be taught. They aren't. People talk about we need to improve our education. We need to do this. We got to be more understanding. We got to this. We got to that. What we really need to do is have educations like they had in the past, where we had to use our heads. We had to think. We had to remember. We had to learn. What we learn now is where to go find the answer. We don't need to know the answer anymore. We just need to know where to find that answer. And I've looked at a lot of, I remember looking at my own children's tests, and I looked at my grandchildren's tests. My grandchildren's tests are very simple compared to even when I was in school, when I was a child. But everybody spouts off how smart their kids are. All the kids are so smart. They're learning so much more now than they ever did. That's baloney. That's not true. Can they pass this test that I just read off? No, they can't. They can't. That doesn't make, because they can find it. They can find the answer from somebody else, does not make them smarter than those of the past. They knew the answers for themselves. They didn't need somebody else's answer. Can you pass the test? It's tough. It's tough. Do I fault the kids today? Absolutely not. We learn what we're taught. We learn what we taught the kids. You can't blame the kids. You can't blame the kids. And I feel bad. I feel the kids have been shorted. I see Get Her Done Granny and JCT are out there. It's so great to see you two ladies. Oh, they're chatting away. Yeah, Get Her Done Granny. Yeah, I love her. A lot of them don't even know the times table anymore. They don't. I asked a couple of my grandkids. I said, "You use times table to make it a little easier and quicker for you? What's a times table?" They don't even know what one is. I asked several of my grandkids. They were all together and we're chatting. I asked them. I said, "Have you ever used an abacus?" I said, "Abacus is a great, man. Once you learn how to use the abacus, man, that's better than a calculator." They go, "What the hell is an abacus?" They don't even know what an abacus is. When I was in school, for crying out loud, when I was in junior high, we started using abacus. When I was in high school, man, my one math teacher, he'd get mad at me. He'd say, hey, Sty, get rid of the abacus. You can't be using that during a test. You can use it on your homework, but you ain't using it on a test. I had this little abacus that I would carry around with me when I go to math class, and he'd hear it click, 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 click. A good abacus, man, worked better than any calculator. Kids don't even know what the heck an abacus is nowadays. No, because I got a calculator right in here. I've got my scientific calculator built right in here. When Texas Instruments came out with the first scientific calculators, man, we were thrilled. We were thrilled. And now you don't even need that as long as you got a smartphone. It's like I had said early in the stream, if all of our technology were to crash on us, what would we do? What would we do? We don't have enough people with it all up here. If we got thrown back into times where we were living like we were in 1900, we wouldn't even be able to function then, in that era. Take all of the technology away, and we would function like a bunch of cavemen because we don't have the brain smarts anymore. It's a shame because we can't pass the test. Well, that's the end of the show, folks. The can you pass the test leaves a real big question, doesn't it? And it's a topic that a person can go on with for days and days. So, hey, Sty loves y'all. I want to thank you all for being here today. It was great. It was a blast. Watch the end credits to see what our next topic is for Monday. Love y'all. You have a wonderful weekend. And if you get a chance, stop in Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for the Sty Story. Until I see you again, you all take very good care of yourselves. Bye bye.